Probably happened well before I was in the school system, and it's happened ever since. Second thing, can you just walk through what happens when a teacher, say teacher has Billy Bob, and that student cussed her out and caused a big scene or whatever else? I've heard teachers have to do mountains of paperwork. They have 3 hours on their personal time. They have to do it. Is that true? Is that not true? Because I know when I was in school, it was a whatever you call it. It was like a single page disciplinary, the student's name, what happened, a referral type thing. And one went home with the student, went in their folder or whatever. And it wasn't this mountain of paperwork people are talking about.
No, sir. It's exactly the same. Actually, the new referral forms are broken down just like the Code of Acceptable Behavior. So really, they don't even have to write as much as they used to. They check the boxes, and then it goes to the administration for a situation that's a bad situation. That teacher should call the administrator immediately, and the administrator or someone will come to that classroom to remove that student. And then when they're in the office, then that is when the dialogue takes place, the conferencing, to see what might have happened, and then there are consequences that come from that. But nothing has changed in the sense of how teachers do it. Actually, the new form is actually it's easier to follow than the old form. And Ms. Thurman, if there's anybody that's a disciplinarian, it's me. I'm a former Marine, and I do not put up with anything that comes in front of the DHA. It's not just me. There are 2 other members that go through. If there are things in there that the administration comes and they're disruptive like that, we have handled that appropriately. And really, from my 29 years in this business, not at this level, we have been handling that a lot more strict than it has in the previous administrations.
I know it's not my place. You are a Marine. You're never a former.
Yeah.
You are a Marine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't know, Joe, whether it's you or Jenny next down there.
First, I think, Caritza, you had a lot of wisdom in what you said about if somebody has a problem, to go to a person who can help solve that problem is very sage advice, because it helps you improve your life, not just stew. So thank you for that. So we have some things that are the same and some things are different. We have a policy that is different and new. We have 44,000 students, the majority of whom are the same as we had the year before. I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit away from a laundry list of problems, because they have been here for years, and every person in this whole room could list something that some child, their own included, did wrong at some point. But instead, to think about within the parameters of the work that we have as a board, and of the work that then you all have as our administrators and principals and teachers, what can we do to make things better? Because we have discipline and we have behavior. So we have a plan for how we will discipline a child, but how that child behaves and manages their own discipline really is at the heart of all of this. And somebody that I would love to involve in this conversation is Jeremiah Taylor, who is our student school board member. I noticed last year and brought up at one of our board meetings that our bullying incidents, the official, they've been vetted and tallied as an official bullying incident, were down by 50% over the space of about 3 years. And that was remarkable to me and important to notice that that students are able to feel safer at school as it relates to bullying. And what we were told when I asked about that was that was due in large part to efforts that our students themselves have made as part of the Student Advisory Council, as part of the STARS program, just some really cool things that these students have come up with that a whole bunch of us with all our gray hair, it's not going to be the idea that we have. And so I think it would be really interesting to engage our students more on this issue. And I know for a fact that they would want to be a part of it, because I've attended the superintendent advisory councils where they said, we want safer schools. That's a priority for our students advisory council this year. Another thing that's a priority for them is academic achievement. And isn't it great that that's a priority for us too? Any behavior plans that we have, any discipline policies that we have, all work in an effort to educate the children of Hamilton County. And we want them to have academic progress. We want to have them graduate from school. And so it all supports that. So if we turn this from the realities that we all face, that to Karitz's point, maybe in a class of 25, you've got 2 or 3 that are truly disruptive. How do we engage the other 22 students who are leaders in and of themselves to do something positive in their classrooms, and to be part of that expectation of, this is how we're going to act here? Because you know what? I want to be here, and I deserve to be here, and you're not going to take that away from me. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I have a feeling that Jeremiah and many of our 44,000 students would have a lot to say about it.
Thank you. Who's that? Joe, is that you down there? Go to Joe, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Let me just say this. I
Dr.
would
Kempton,
expect
sorry.
you to respond to everything that's printed. I know you got to exercise a lot of wisdom, but I would question, would we even be having this meeting today were it not in response to some of the inflammatory, what I call inflammatory things that have been printed? So that's all I'm saying. I think there is a time, and we've got a very talented, I don't see him here, communication director.
Not here, the other one.
I'm talking about our guy. I'm talking about Tim. It would just seem to me and again, I know you got to use wisdom, but sometimes we got to push back when things are just not true. And I would question if we would even be here today.
Well, it's a shame if we wouldn't be here if some of these things are going on. Just some of the things I
That's
didn't know,
right.
that
That's
I didn't
right.
have to read anywhere
That's
except
right.
on my
I couldn't
email
agree with you
and
more.
on the telephone.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry, but like I said, I'm not going to call these people liars. I'm just not.
I don't believe they are.
We won't either. One thing I would say is I'll be glad to talk about the progress in the system. Improving student achievement is my number one job. The number one job you charge me with doing as a school board is to improve student achievement, and we've done that. A lot of work to do. But we've done that. When you look at organizationally, operationally, really from top to bottom, I don't have to sell it. It's done. A lot of work has been done. You as a board have reviewed every policy in this school system over the course of a year. You have pushed us and charged us to go from a front and back pamphlet to a 38-page document that school leaders had hands all over helping to develop and create. I could go on and on about the things that are facts that have been done. Now, let me say this. We absolutely have challenges. Absolutely. We've got 44,000 students and we've got 6,000 employees. We will always, when you've got 50,000 individuals, you will always have challenges. Look, y'all, the schools that have been talked about are 95+% economically disadvantaged. They are the least, the last, oftentimes the forgotten, and they're the ones in the headlines on the paper, which makes no sense. So those schools that are being talked about, they're schools that frankly have had challenges for 2 decades. And one of those schools, one of them, Tyner is a campus that, really has done pretty doggone good over the last few years. it really, really has. And I know Chris Soares didn't have anything to do with that, did you? Okay. So I mean, the reality is, I mean, those are the facts, you know. And so there will always be challenges. There will always be things folks can choose to write about. But I would challenge us. What I feel like this board has challenged me to do, and I hope to always stay true to it as long as you'll have me here, Superintendent, is to stay committed to the strategic plan and to stay committed to our focus, which at the core of our focus is accelerating student achievement. That's the core. So I wake up every morning thinking about accelerating student achievement, trying to make sure that our students are prepared for post-secondary. There are many days that I have to be told what's in the paper from Tim, because my job is, right now, my job's a little bit even more different, right, David Eves, because I'm trying to check on buses too. So so I mean, I don't get in that space. Because we're focused on the focus. And so if we can spend our time focused on the focus, I mean, I know this was a necessary meeting, and Rhonda, I appreciate all the work that you did, because you gave valuable feedback to our Ken Bradshaw, Lord bless him. He came and said, yeah, I went and met with Rhonda. You know what? She told me to cut this, and this, and it was right, you know. And so your push on getting the code of acceptable behavior and your insight and wisdom was extremely, extremely helpful. And so now you have a more robust document that is labor intensive, because we got to continue to come back and refine and have the conversation. But I do hope this, and I'll say this, I hope that we spend 2 hours talking about improving student achievement the same way we've talked about student behavior. And let me say this, I just believe that of the 5% of students we're talking about that are exhibiting some extreme behavior, there are 95% of students that are some good kids that are committed to trying to do the right thing, that have supportive parents. So I do hope, as we continue to converse around the school district, that we also talk about that 95% of students that are working extremely hard, and to the point, you know, the Jeremiahs and all the others, we really involve them and make sure that we elevate their stories as much as we do these others that are going on.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you impart a little bit more wisdom.
I just have one question that I forgot to ask from. I also did the same thing as Caritza and asked for input from District 2 principals, and there was a question, and I saw that you took notes, Dr. Johnson, about the bus behavior. That maybe you all would look at that a little bit. The question was, the consequences listed are only bus related, even when they are very serious. For example, fighting, threats, and sexual harassment. The other question from a principal was evening school. Does it have to be limited to 10 days at the school level for non-exceptional education students? Is this the law?
Could you repeat that? I'm going to try slowly. Does it have to be limited to 10 days at the school level for non-exceptional education students? Is this the law?
If I understand the question, I think he's asking, can they have alternative school for gen ed students as well as for special ed students? Yes. If that's the question, yes, we can have, principals can be as flexible as they need to provide alternative education programs for their students. So let's suppose you have a student who is disruptive, but the principal is thinking, I don't want to put him out for 5 days because he loses a week of school. I'm going to put him to my evening school where he can continue to get his education. But I've got a tighter student-teacher ratio, and he ain't going to act a fool. Absolutely, if there's that sort of program available at the school, that is absolutely a mechanism that the principal can use. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Johnson, then I'm going to give you a little bit more wisdom. A lot of teachers think that the significant portion of the achievement gap is actually a time on task gap caused by disruptions in the classroom. So a lot of these, it kind of works hand in hand. The schools that have all these disruptions, the bigger achievement gap. If we get, you say 2 hours on this, if we take care of, if this 2 hours gets us any closer to taking care of some of the behavior in these classes, academics will improve. We will not have a hard time retaining teachers. It's the number one reason people put their kids in private schools, student behavior. Everything in the school system revolves around student behavior. If we take care of that, we've taken care of a whole lot of our problems. Like I say, 95%, I had the 95% right here. We need to worry about the 95% instead of the 5%. If we can get them out of the way sometimes and let the kids who want to learn and want to be there and value their education, let them learn and get those other ones out of the way that continue to disrupt, and we allow them to stay in the classroom for whatever reason, and that's what this is all about. Student achievement, we won't have to have a 2-hour a meeting about student achievement. This will take care of a lot of that if we take care of this, because a lot of these kids are not able to learn in their class. They're afraid, as Jenny said, some of them are fearful to go to school, or Jenny or Tiffany once said that, and it's absolutely the truth because they see the behavior of some of these kids in their classroom. And those are the good kids will stay home. The mean ones won't stay home. The good ones will. And so it's something that we need to tackle. If it's been going on for years, Tucker, shame on us. Shame on us. It's nobody but this board right here. If this stuff's been going on and teachers are afraid to tell the administration, afraid to tell anybody, afraid to tell their school board members, and they feel more comfortable with talking to somebody else, so be it. But shame on us if that's the case. But anyway, this meeting is over, so Joe, you can have it.
Can I say real fast? Can I just add something? What Dr. Johnson said. I think we got to keep the 5% from disrupting the 95%. I agree, Dr. Johnson. 95% of our school kids are great. We just got to keep the 5% from disrupting that 95.
That's right.
I just want to say I'm not going to be here for agenda session. I have a friend with a death in the family, and the visitation is from 6 to 7, so I need to get to that. So if I have any questions, I'll reach out to those individuals separately.
Do what?
All right. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So 6:18.
This is not happening.
She said, what you're talking about, right? She said, getting the balance. And she said, I've been a special ed teacher all my career. So she said, the thing is to balance the needs of the exceptional ed kid with the others. And I mean, that's what I'm saying. I agree with what you're saying. Howard, I guarantee you 95% good. But we just got to do something to keep that other 5% from keeping them from achieving what they want to achieve. How's that little one?
Good, thank you.
All right, guys, we ready?
To help him,
Yeah. Well,
Tell me thank you.
oh, Dr. Gray, your sweetheart picked you out a beautiful dress today. He laid out your clothes. They gave you breakfast. Be careful, Steve. It's nice being an appreciated lady.
taking it a little farther, Steve.
Be careful. They're going to get you for harassment in the
I'm
workplace.
complimenting her husband for taking good care of a lady.
All right, so let's go ahead and start our review session here of the agenda. So our exemplars there, we've got some reward schools to be recognized. Also, yes, sir.
Those schools are going to be here at 5 o'clock to take pictures with any of the board members that schools are here. So if you've got a school and could get here at 5, the principals are going to be here so we could take pictures and get that part.
Okay.
Would we already know if we're involved?
It should be in the attachment there.
I think you were last time.
Delegations there, looks like we've got a presentation by class. Jenny, do you want to hit on that real quick?
They're going to give us just an overview of what happened last year short, and then talk to us about some things we can anticipate for next year. It should help us start to think about what our legislative agenda will be, or what we'd like to include. That's all. I told them 10 to 15 minutes max.
Okay. Then obviously they will have a future ready update. Scrolling down through here, field trips listed there by learning community. Anybody seen anything so far they might have a question about a field trip? Cool. Dr. Johnson, you got something? Okay.
I don't have any really to point out that jumped out at me. I asked about CSAS. They have a choral group. Their choir is going to New York, but most of them were pretty standard as far as their performances. I'm sure that go with it.
All right, so if we head down there to bids and contracts, Dr. Highlander.
I guess this is a Mr. Goldberg question. We're looking at considering a new subcontract, right? Have we looked at, there's a lot of personal information, Social Security number and all that. We've absolutely sure that they will not let that out to anyone else. Have we looked at that? I mean, sometimes companies, I'm not sure who would do that, but.
It would become their employees. The subs would become their employees, and they would have the same responsibilities as we would to protect information.
So we're sure that, I mean, you've looked at that they would protect it?
Yeah,
I'm just curious when I saw that was just something that hit me. While we're there, something that we've already approved, I do want to ask Brent about, and maybe this is just foolishness on my part, I didn't understand. And I'm all for the wellness clinic, and I'm all for the on-site pharmacies. I think it's a great boon for our employees, very positive, and I suggested it months ago. I'm not anti, but the $10.25 million for the wellness clinic and the $5 million for the on-site pharmacies. That's coming out of internal service fund. Kind of explain that to me, but I want to be sure I've got that right in my mind, what that internal service fund is.
So the internal service fund is a fund set up for us to use for self-insurance. So the two things that go into that fund are dollars from our GP budget allocation and the premiums we collect from employees. It's set up the same way as Hamilton County General Government has theirs set up. We actually have a meeting with them to go through how they set up the clinic and pharmacy within the internal service fund. They set up separate orgs so that you could track it better, and we're going to meet with them to see how they do that. But the internal service fund is separate from the general purpose fund, separate from capital, separate from nutrition, and it's basically ins and outs for medical insurance and claims.
That was basically my understanding of it. Do we have a fund balance now in that?
Yes.
But it's not anywhere near 15 million, is it?
Off the top of my head, it's about 50 million. 50.
About 15 million?
50.
Oh, 5 million. Okay, 50.
No, 50.
50 million. Okay.
Maybe closer to 51 million.
Okay.
That's the total fund balance at the end of fiscal 19.
So we're not even considering, and that's good. This is positive. This is what I'm glad to hear.
And the $10 million that's a multiple year price for the health clinics. 5 million is multiple years for the pharmacy. Now, there's other dollars that will be spent as well. We're going to, for example, we will buy prescriptions ourselves at wholesale rates rather than reimbursing pharmacies such as CVS, because we'll have those at our own clinic. But we'll be replacing claim dollars. So right now we pay claims. Instead, we'll just buy it and dispense the drugs ourselves. We'll pay the doctors ourselves at a lower rate than what we reimburse claims. So that's
great. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to understand a little more financially, be sure I understand how it's, and that's basically the way I understood it. But I did not heard that 50 million. I didn't know what we had sort of in a fund there. But
so the audit, it's not, the audit's not complete, but the audited fund balance should be around 51 million for the internal service fund. And that shows up, the only place that really shows up is in the CAFR at the end of the year, that we provide to the board, the consolidated annual financial report that is included with the county's full general government report.
Well, thank you. And like I say, I'm not, this is not meant to be anything negative. I've been a proponent of this as a benefit for our employees for a long time. I just got to get a better understanding.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. While we're on that topic, can I mention the on-site RX? So on-site RX was approved, the contract was approved last month. This is on here again as item E this month. And the difference is, so last month, I think it was Mr. McClendon that noticed the typo of $7.73 per member per month being in there twice. So we went to correct that. During that time, we also realized we had an error on how many covered lives we had presented to on-site RX for the pricing. We told them, I think 13,000, because we included employees that are not covered by our insurance plan. So we went back and adjusted that. So this contract that's on the agenda for this month is the exact same contract as last month, except it's a lower price per month, per member. But it's only for the first pharmacy that will open. It'll get adjusted up to $10 per member per month once we have a second pharmacy open. The reason is so it's about $3 more per member per month than the original when you have both pharmacies. And the reason for that is because there's going to be less lives covered, and their pricing is based on that component. So that's why the contract is back in front of you, and the only difference between this one and last month is the price per member per month.
Mr. McClendon.
Just one thing before I get to does that change the overall price of that contract since it's going up? Because it was, I think the first contract was based on that $7 figure instead of the $10 figure.
That portion would increase depending on, it's going to change every year based on how many lives are covered by the medical insurance plan.
Gotcha.
And we actually report the lives monthly. So, because who's covered by insurance it changes every month. So Krista in our benefits department will report a number to them monthly, and they will invoice us based on that number for that month.
Gotcha.
So we're not paying for people that aren't on the plan.
Gotcha. Second thing, the substitute contract, it has, I guess, what we pay for a substitute from them based on 4-year, 2-year, and high school diploma. One, is that in line with what we pay for substitutes? Second, if they don't fill it, they have to pay us a $25 fee But then we're also, I mean, $25 fee versus not having a teacher in a classroom when we're paying them to do that. You know, if it was, they match what we would be paying someone anyway, because either we're going to be paying, or, you know, have a teacher that's going to have to split up a classroom, or I guess maybe we could, you know, there's just not going to be a substitute, and all they're having to do is pay $25 and say, well, sorry, here's your check for $25. And I don't know what other districts do. I know we're part of, I guess, that Wilson County contract, or we're latching onto that. If anyone can.
So just kind of another way to think about it would be that currently we have about an 80% fill rate. Last year we filled about 80% of our jobs throughout the year on average. So if you look in that contract, our target's 95%. So, and then some of the districts, other districts in Tennessee, what we're seeing there among those fill rates in those other districts, anywhere between 91 to 97% fill rates. So we feel like what we're going to be able to do is really advance having people in the classrooms, which ultimately will have a positive effect on student achievement.
And second thing, actually was having a conversation this weekend with someone that is a substitute in our system. And I don't know if it's our policy, a state policy, or what, but a substitute has to substitute, what, 10 times in a semester?
20 times during the year.
So it can be just 20 times in a year. It could be, because this person was like, I work full-time in the fall, but in the spring, I don't. And they got a letter in the mail saying, you're about to be cut off and you'll no longer be, because they didn't meet their 10 in the fall.
Well, what we did is send out, and if all they would have had to do is really get back to us and explain their situation. Okay. And we would, because we're really not in the business of running anybody.
Well, when I heard that, I was like, I don't think we need, I was confused. So is that policy ours, or is that policy?
It's our policy.
Because she was like, well, I guess I'm not going to sub anymore, because I guess on that letter there was not, please contact us, or whatever else.
She can contact us and we can work through that with her.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
If I can address, the first question Mr. McClendon had was about the pricing included in the contract. So the pricing included in the Wilson County contract includes the amount that the sub would get paid plus the fee charged by the staffing agency. This contract has been piggybacked on by 8 or 9 other counties throughout the state, and they have changed that pricing in the contract to match what they pay locally. So, and I had this discussion with Mr. Bennett earlier, and we may need to get some more clarification. Essentially what we are doing is the component that we're adopting is the fee that we're paying the vendor. Well, we will pay our subs what our sub rates are here, because we pay more than Wilson County does, as an example. So the rates that are in here would not be the exact rates that we would adopt. And so Scott can help me if we need to look at an addendum page that lists out those, if we're able to do that. We know that other districts have piggybacked off this contract, and we have a listing of those.
So you're saying,
and we know what the fee we'll pay is, but everything else is a pass-through cost, right? Just like.
So these fees in here, I'm just pulling one, this $93 for a substitute full-day high school diploma, that's not technically the correct fee?
That's Wilson County. So this is just Wilson County's contract.
So basically
that we're
it'll just
asking
come back
to piggyback on.
like the pharmacy contract, and once those get worked through. Gotcha.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it's kind of like the bus driver situation here. I mean, how are they going to get any more subs than we were able to get, I guess? I don't know, do they go out and just actively try to get more subs? Were we not already doing that? I guess that's why I'm wondering how they can have such a much better success rate getting subs than we should have been able to do all along. I don't know.
Well, so to answer your question about that, let me get this over here while I look at you. First of all, it's kind of like, as you know, I worked in the utility business, and so our focus was, recruiting and attracting people to work at our utilities. But we also used recruiting firms to help us with temporary staffing. And so this is, and because that's what they do. They're better at it than we are because that's what their line of business is. So ESS, their line of business is substitute staffing. They're in 27 states, 9 districts here in Tennessee. So, you know, they've got a back office component, processes and procedures that really are focused around staffing subs. You know, we include our sub-recruiting staffing as part of our overall big picture. So what this would really allow us to do is focus on our teachers, our principals, and our classified staff.
One quick just legal question here, Scott. Substitute teachers, we all know substitute teachers are usually the ones that get mistreated a lot by students. Are they covered under the same disciplinary type situations as a regular classroom teacher, or do we have it, say, Hamilton County employee, and are they really considered Hamilton County employees at this point?
When they're there teaching students, they have all the authority that a Hamilton County teacher has.
Okay.
So if they want to send a kid to the office and write a referral, they have that full authority.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else there? Bids and contracts? All right. That brings us down to conferences and consultants. Okay.
And can I'm sorry, Chairman, I would like to go back to the bids and contract just real briefly and point out, I know it's here, and I'll probably re-elevate this. I think I see Karen Glenn back there in the back, but one of the things that was pointed to earlier, if you look at the memo for STARS, there are several things that I just want to make sure I accentuate. The move to stand work, the peer mediation training, the youth summit that we started in the last year or two, and the Kindness Matters campaign. Just real brief, Karen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think these are really neat student-centered things that we'd love for you to elevate.
Yes, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to just kind of highlight some of the initiatives that we have underway. First of all, to begin with, the Move to Stand, I'll give you an idea as to how that originated. We, a few years ago, I was involved in doing quite a bit of the student training, the staff training in the OVEAS Bullying Prevention Initiative. And prior to that training, there was a questionnaire that every school had to complete. We would ask them, it was a 42-question survey, and we asked them to give us information about what the students were saying. The students were completing that. And there was one question that was particularly alarming to me, and that question was, how many friends do you have, or do you feel connected? And in every school that we surveyed, there was at least one student that said none. So we felt like that was something that was enough to give us pause so that we could focus on what we could do to help every student feel engaged. So we started to get research from the different areas in the state to see what they were doing, and we learned that Move to Stand was an empathy-based training that was one to help to develop empathy within the students. We started it out as a leadership group where we had a select group of students, but we didn't see data that was consistent with bringing down those numbers. And so it was one principal that had an issue that called and said, I've got an issue going on and we want to know if there's something that we can do about it. And we said, well, we'll try this Move to Stand with your grade level. We did it with their grade level, with their 7th grade. We moved on. We did it with their 8th grade. We did it with their 6th grade. And he felt like that it was a great way so that we could drive disciplinary issues down. We realized we were kind of on to something. So in talking with some of the principals, many of them said that 7th grade was the issue that they felt like would be a good way for us to focus. And so we started doing the Move to Stand training, this empathy-based training with the entire 7th grade class. When we did it with a leadership group, we didn't get the results that we felt like we needed. But when we did it for an entire grade level, we did get, we got results. And then we had some schools that said, we want you to do it for our incoming ninth grade. For example, STEM does it every year with their ninth grade class. Ottawa High School did it last year, this year. Soddy Daisy High School did it with their ninth grade. And so basically, it's a way to unify the grade level so that they have a greater level of empathy for one another, and they're less likely to engage in that antisocial behaviors. As far as the peer mediation training is concerned, most of the time when there are situations that engage different students, if there's a conflict, most of the time that is because of miscommunication. We had one school that had gone through the training, and this was a middle school, and the principal said, oh my goodness, it was 6:58 in the morning, and the kids were coming out, they were just getting ready to go at it, and they pulled them away from the amen crowd, and those students had an opportunity to sit down and go through the problem-solving mediation process. Those two students who were very volatile at one moment got to the point where they were used as leaders in that school, and so we knew that was a good way. So that peer mediation is just an opportunity for two peers to be trained, and when there's an issue, they sit down with the students that are having the conflict and they problem solve that. The kindness matters. We wanted to have something specific for the elementary level. The 5th grade was a good level for us to do that with, because we know that our data showed that 5th grade was a good grade level for us to focus on promoting kindness. We also felt like that was going to be a great opportunity for those 5th graders to showcase those underclassmen in that grade how they should act. Schools have done incredibly well. I know that in addition to our Kindness Matters campaign, Big Ridge has a kindness crew where they have students that are doing some things focused on kindness. I know that Nolan has they have the kind ambassadors that they use. We also have East Ridge High School that has a group from the high school that will go down to the Spring Creek Elementary School. And they do that every quarter, that they're focused on that. So that's really a good way for those elementary school students to see the high school students. And we, if there's a male that's getting the Kindness Matters Award, then we want to make sure there's a male that's presenting the award. If it's a girl getting it, we want a girl from the high school to present it. But it's not always possible for us to have them, the high school students. Sometimes their schedules, logistically it doesn't work. And then the Youth Summit was just an opportunity for the high school students to give us information about how students need to be connected with one another. The kids know. I mean, they know what the issues are. They know who is not connected. And so, we started out, I think a few years ago, there was the superintendent's Speak Out. And it was a great opportunity. It involved a smaller group of people, but the Speak Out was always done in February, and there was not really adequate time for them to implement any of the strategies. And so after the person that was coordinating that was retiring, we thought, oh, this is a good opportunity because somebody else would have to take it on. So, we volunteered to be a part of that and to use that Youth Summit to train a leadership group. And this year it will be in November, but it is focused primarily on getting those high school students to come up with strategies where they will decide how they can connect. They know who is disconnected. They know who feels isolated. And we know that research is overwhelming that when students feel socially isolated, they're at a greater risk to cause harm. So we engage those students in those conversations. They come up with some great things. I was so glad to hear about, in talking with Jeremiah Taylor, because at their school, they came up with Fam Jam. It's supposed to be family jam. I'm not quite sure how it works, but, they engage students in conversations. They connect students. And it's even though we know that our focus is academic, this purpose is really engaging students, because school should be a family. It should be where you're connected with one another. And so we just want to give them the opportunity for them to cultivate that. Kids have done it. They have done incredibly well with it. So I just appreciate us having the opportunity to solicit support to continue to do that. Are there any questions?
Dr. Highlander.
It's not really a question, it's a comment. Mrs. Glenn, you and the programs you facilitate are a blessing to our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Mrs. Lennon.
Ditto. I wanted to say the same thing. Thank you so much for the program's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Glenn. All right, so pulling the consulting item there. Down to budget amendments. Anything under federal grants and self-funded programs? No, there's a lot there. It's an understatement.
Chairman Wingate, I would just say, I mean, this is a lot of this is housekeeping. Every year at the beginning of the year, we have to figure out the carryover, figure out the budgets for the carryover, get approval from all the various agencies. So most of this is housekeeping for carryover and New Year awards. And it's just the process we are required to go through between the federal and state governments.
Okay, if we don't have anything there, underneath that, we've got general purpose budget amendments. Does anyone have a question there about that? Or comment? Right under that, grant application request there for Safe Schools. Dr. Robertson just stepped out for a second. Can you address that?
So, yeah, and this is also included in the budget amendment. It's the annual Safe Schools grant that we get each year. So this is the formal application to submit to the state, and then the budget amendments also include a budget amendment that's total is the same as the 1.6 million, which is a $1.2 million increase in the budget.
What was that amount last year?
Yeah, what do we get, Karen? It was right at $1 million. So the appropriation is based on how many students you have, and it was about, what was the number? Do you remember off the top of your head?
There were actually two parts of that. There was a security part that was $831,000, and then there was a Safe Schools grant that was, I think it was maybe $350,000 roughly. The security section was really designated primarily for schools to complete a safety assessment so that they could determine what level of enhancements that they needed. And so that, there were three parts of that. That was the safety part, the security enhancement, there was the reunification part, and there was another part. I can't remember what that was, but, well, it was their safety assessment. It was a hardening of the entrances. There was about $631,000 that was designated specifically for schools to harden their entrances. And that, along with the another allocation of funds that Justin Witt is working with, that's a small part of that, but it will enable us to do more schools to harden those entrances so that when visitors come in the building, they will be channeled to a main office as opposed to, having access to students in a commons area. So that's the bulk of that. But in addition to that, it also includes the SROs, the two SROs. It includes some of the student training that I spoke about just just a few minutes ago, and other mobile radios and things of that nature.
Okay. Thank you. All right, that moves us to the board policies. So second and final reading here. You have those in front of you on screen or paper. Okay.
On the policy 6.205, changing for the open enrollment schools and the
Oh, the date change?
Yeah, open enrollment says not a new, so that's a change from what was original.
Okay.
This is still second requirement.
Okay. Any questions, comment about those policies?
So that's still going to be second final reading?
Okay. That brings us down to our administrative business matters. Request for, so we have two positions there, purchase card administrator and student security officer. Mr. Fogelman, you want to talk about those at all?
Yeah, the purchase card administrator will be responsible. Well, we approved the purchase card approach, and he'll be responsible for overseeing that program. It's basically going to be a position, probably the salary range will be between 40 and 50K, and and Brent can address this in more detail, but we're going to be able to utilize a position in his department that will become vacant and utilize it for this position.
So as we've implemented the purchase card program, we've already been able to see many efficiencies in reducing the amount of paperwork and transactions that have to go through our accounts payable department. Excuse me. So what we'll be able to do with this is repurpose an accounts payable position into a purchase card administrator position. So it takes a person from being reactive and pushing payments through to someone being proactive and administering the program, making sure we have proper training, monitoring, reporting, and managing the relationship with SunTrust. So it's no new headcount, no new funding. We're just going to move a position into this role.
Thank you, sir. Student security officer position.
I don't mind jumping in there. So one of the things we've identified is the need to continue to tighten our student security supports and a few things that exist. One is building level emergency response teams. Secondly is the kind of central command for our tip line. Also following up on social media threats that are pointed towards schools and students. Being actively involved in tabletop scenarios where our schools actually go through the tabletop scenarios. We're actually on the cusp of piloting and I'll forget the name, a piece of software that will allow our schools to, we already have our safety plans in it, but will allow our schools to also upload the student information system. It ties into the student information system, and when our schools go through drills and such, our teachers will be able to electronically identify whether or not the student is present with them in that line or in that location or not. And if not, that administrator gets the alert. So it makes us a lot more efficient in the case of an emergency with reunification. But there's just a lot of opportunity, frankly, we've done a lot of things around security of our campuses and such, but we need to really take it to the next level. Now, I will say this, it's mixed into this, that I would also submit for board consideration. The ultimate impetus behind this, I had a meeting with the sheriff this morning. Right now there are 9 vacancies at the sheriff's for SROs, for school resource officers. There are additional 4 that I believe said are on leave or will be going on leave in total, and so there are 13 vacancies that exist. And so the other thing that, a couple of things we want to do is, one, at this role to centralize our security function, but then two, and I need to say this, Tim Harper has functioned in this role, but he's also done, he does asbestos, he does OSHA, he does fire marshal, and frankly, he just came to me as I've been able to get closer to the work. He just came to me and said, I can't get to the depth of this work that we really need to do to really make sure our campuses are where they need to be. And so the other thing that I'd like to submit for consideration as a potential amended item is the savings from this, from what we've budgeted over the last couple of years for school resource officers, because there are currently 9 vacancies that exist to consider, for the board to consider offering with the money that's been budgeted, a $2,000 sign-on bonus for school resource officers to maybe entice some school resource officers to come along and be a part. The standard to be a school resource officer, as the sheriff and I were talking this morning, is if they're just higher and more rigorous, as well they should be, than a regular general patrol officer. And so, which those standards are high too on both sides. And so they're trying to do anything they can to get the roles filled on our end. At the school level, we've got, roughly 13 schools that won't have at some level the level of coverage, and that they'll be doubling up and tripling up and trying to figure it out. And so it's just a situation where we're just trying to keep our campuses as safe and secure as possible.
Dr. Highlander.
I think it's a good idea, Dr. Johnson. I'm just concerned that would they have a longevity where they'd have to stay to get that 2,000, I would hope.
You're correct. So I was with him, and I'm gonna get the title wrong, maybe Commander Garrett or Chief Deputy Garrett, this morning, Austin Garrett, and so basically that was part of the conversation. Was the requirements there were their thought process with it is there would be some type of expectation for it. The initial thing I threw out there was 3 years, but there would be some type of expectations to remain as a part of it, and then in addition to that. If a bonus were approved, and again, it would be an amended item, if a bonus were approved, it would be dispersed over the course of that time period. So they're trying to make sure that they retain. So we had some preliminary conversation around that this morning.
Mr. McClendon?
Kind of off topic, but on topic. With these 9 and then what's going to be 13 vacancies, I don't know if you can do it with the county. I know you can with the city. I think it's like $40 an hour to have, a cop there. Have we thought about, doing that, just because, God forbid something happened, we have no one there and response, 2-5 minutes away, but that makes a big difference. Even if they were just sitting in their car in the parking lot because they're not trained on how to deal with students and stuff like that. But, since we're not paying salaries, we can go in and, have someone there.
Yeah, I may let Nakia, actually, I may take her. I know there was a very good comment. We're looking at everything, so yes, in short, yes, absolutely. We've talked there. The city and the county, frankly, when it comes to officers, I think they're both having recruiting challenges, just like we are with special ed or math or any other area. So you may want to highlight some of the conversation.
I sat down 2 weeks ago before fall break with Captain Shepard and his team, and to your point, he highlighted that right now I think Chattanooga City Police is about 100 vacancies versus what they budgeted for. Similarly, across the department, the sheriff's department, they're also short, which is why we're trying, he suggested that this signing bonus would be something to try to attract the candidates that are coming in. You have to have at least 2 years of experience to be an SRO to try to get them to choose us, to choose the SRO division versus some other division. So the problem and the challenge that we have, even with trying to ask can other people pick up shifts, like you said before.
Yeah, I'm just talking about off-duty police officers. So.
Is that there's so many other areas that are trying to be covered. And then I think Captain Shepard is very thoughtful about that. He says that to your point, the the strength of a school resource officer is the relationship and the knowledge. And so he's very hesitant, even when we talked about prioritizing, like we have 9 vacancies. So we were talking about, well, should you move someone from what might be a lower risk school to a quote unquote higher risk school? And he was hesitant to do that because he's saying that the SRO that's at that existing school, they have a relationship there.
Yeah.
And that's where they're most impactful. And he feels very uncomfortable with shifting people around, which again, we defer to their expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I think some coverage is better than no coverage. And even if it's, hey, Eastridge High School's the shift change and there's cops there. Yeah, just something like that, because I mean, we're talking 13 schools. That's a lot of schools that don't have anything. And if we're paying a cop, I know the city's $40 an hour. Yes, county's $40 an hour too. So I mean, we get people here for our meetings.
What he has said is that the patrol, right, that when there's a school and they know that there's a vacancy, that they've made the patrol officers who are in that district aware, and that we know that our schools that's the first call if you have a vacancy or if you don't have an SRO assigned. So he has made the effort that the patrol officers spend more time, canvassing and coming through our school areas.
Yeah.
And so that's what they've tried to do.
Yeah, because I know there's a shortage of everybody, but if they could get an off-duty police officer to be there 3 days a week, and even if it's a different person, it goes a long way. So.
Mr. Smith, you referenced the student security officer keeping this data about kids that are involved in the drills, and maybe a question for you, Dr. Edwards. Did we ever figure out a way that we're getting some kind of manifest for kids that are on buses?
It's done. Right
question come up right on time.
2 weeks before, 1 week before we went out, it's done. Durham, first student, all the bus drivers had it, and Brandon, they were working on finishing, getting them to all contracted drivers. So it's done. It was a pretty complicated task. Brian C. had to, the Power School had to talk to all this, but they got it figured out. And actually, we've got it figured out now where even going to the next year, it'll be even better. But they did a really good job of getting it together based on the 20-day. I think went off the 20-day count, got it knocked out, and so it's done.
All right, any other questions, comments under administrative business matters? All right, that gets us to maintenance and operations. We've got a Garber sewer easement. I don't see Mr. Wood here. You want to speak to that, Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, so this is easement for development. Justin's gone out to look at it. Justin did the legwork on all this and says it doesn't see it impacting any future development. So I don't know. I'm sure, Scott, were you involved in this back and forth at all? So straightforward.
Okay, and then we obviously got a first read on the policy there. I'd just like some background on that, the lead testing there.
Yeah, I think, and Scott, you may have a little bit of the background on this. This was one that we've been looking at. We've gotten some inquiries around what has been our practice and our policy around lead testing, and we had an existing policy, but Justin Witt and his team worked to go find a model policy update that we could commit to in terms of our practice and policy. So this is the result of their effort and some of the prior inquiries that we've gotten around lead testing.
Mr. Chairman, state law now requires us to adopt a policy governing lead testing, and the issue really boils down to what sort of bar are you willing to set in terms of your testing regimen? How often are you going to test? What is your tolerance level? And so, yeah, Mr. Witt's department was looking at other model policies, because it's easy to say you're not going to have any lead in your drinking water. But in terms of the testing cycle, that's the issue.
Okay, thank you.
Who's going to do the testing? Tennessee Water? They come in and do this for us? They should.
I'd have to ask Mr. Witt, because I don't think that the policy requires it to be done by any one group. It just says that the samples will be taken and tests done.
Well, I would think that Tennessee Water would be glad to.
HCD will conduct lead level tests on an annual basis. Again, that could be done in-house or it could be outsourced.
Well, there are multiple utilities that serve the county too, so, yeah. Mr. Smith?
This Garber sewer easement kind of triggered a thought in my mind. Have we ever had any conversation with the city, who does precious little to help public education, about possibly waiving some of the taxes on stormwater? Have we ever had any conversation like that?
I'll let Brent lean in on that one.
And I'll of course let, is that on? I'll let Scott chime in as well, but my understanding is that it's illegal for them to waive the stormwater fees. They would have to be addressed at the state legislature level. And that's what I recall from when I was at the city during this whole thing, and Scott was on this side. But
If I could say, we were foolish to ever agree to pay it in the first place. We should have never paid it.
Well,
It's exorbitant. We shouldn't pay it.
It's a little over 600,000 a year in stormwater fees, and we're finished with the end. You know, we had the 5-year agreement to pay the back stormwater fees and then also receive back liquor tax from the city. That ended August of this year. So we're done with the 5-year deal. Now we're just paying what we get invoiced for each year.
Joe, I will try to answer your question. The city owed us a lot of money for back liquor tax that they were supposed to be giving us. We had to sue to get the money. We got the money. So as retaliation, we now have to pay the stormwater fee. And so that's pretty basically what it is.
There's no way we can kiss and make up.
I actually asked that question last week. I asked that question last week, Mr. Smith, when I was talking to the chief operating officer of the city and the administrator of public works, and they told me that there was no way to do it without action from the state legislature.
And for that state legislature to act, it would require literally an act of Congress. These are fees that are pushed down by the federal government onto the state, and the state passes it along to us.
But the city could waive it if they wanted to.
The city's position has been that they can't. Now, and you're right, we didn't pay it for years. We were also the largest property owner in Hamilton County, and when they, and this was Mr. Goldberg could shed some light, although maybe he's got my confidentiality since he worked over there at the time. But there was some issue where, this, as I understand it from the city attorney's office, the city reached a point where they had to start collecting fees from us, and I don't know what that was. It was something, they were out of compliance.
Consent decree. I think it was related to the EPA consent decree.
Okay, that's right.
The city has a consent decree. Well, the consent decree actually did start at that same time.
And actually, it really was the other way around. They presented the bill to us, and
I didn't need all that answer. I just.
Hey, we tried though. We tried.
Okay. All right, so that brings us to board matters. Got BEP litigation there, be opportunity for any discussion on Thursday, and then also possible action regarding that BEP litigation. So any questions or comments there? You got something? Okay, so I think that's it.
We're going to be here a while Thursday.
Meeting adjourned.